A post-apocalyptic world is already scary enough. As if survival in the wasteland's monsters aren't enough to contend with, there's unsettling and creepy things waiting for you around every corner in Fallout's history. I'm Mark from Digital Dissection. I make Fallout lore videos, and today I'll be your guide to 9 times that Fallout got pretty damn creepy. Exploring West Virginia in Fallout 76 has plenty of terrifying enemies, and those are just the ones that you can see reliably. While over time we've seen Mirelurk and their queen variants pop out of nowhere, the hermit crab brings on an all-new level of creepy and jump-scare-worthy moments. While enemies have a chance to sneak up on you in Fallout's games, a hidden-in-plain-sight enemy like the hermit crab is unique, mostly because it's nowhere near as small as the adorable ones you're probably used to. No, this hermit crab is the size of a diesel tanker, and appropriately wears literal vehicles as its shell. They'll stay hidden until you're about 4 to 5 yards away from them. And while they're understandably slow-moving given their size, that doesn't mean the fight is over. That's when the hermit crab shares with you its ability to release smaller hatchling, which it can do while alive, as well as a parting gift upon death. Fortunately, these appearances are scripted, but that doesn't make the first surprise any less terrifying. While Fallout 1's New California citizens refer to it as the Glow, the massive crater in the ground southeast of the Boneyard is a direct reminder of the nuclear bombs that fell. At night, its intense radiation and direct hit from nuclear warheads in 2077 give it the name it is now known by. But before the Great War, it was the West Tech Research Facility, exploring the forced evolutionary virus. By the events of Fallout's first game, it's now a dark reminder of the events that destroyed the old world. But it's equally a living tomb for the scavengers of the new hellscape the Earth has become. Many have entered the Glow in search of valuable technologies, and anything they can salvage for a few bottle caps. The result becomes a massive graveyard, a highly irradiated catacombs full of dead wastelanders, and a reminder that some things should stay buried forever. If the radiation doesn't kill you, then what awaits ahead is a heavily damaged Zax supercomputer that still sends robot patrols across its lower levels. The capital wasteland is full of terrors above the surface. But what's underneath the rubble and fallen buildings is the extensive DC Metro system that extends across a majority of the southeastern portion of Fallout 3's map. These dark, vast, brooding locations occasionally have a dumpster fire to light your path, but in most cases it's an unknown path into a black hole where ambient noise and occasional growls provide the only feedback during your travels. What makes the Metro tunnel scary is that first-time players and veterans alike have no choice but to navigate their corridors, and around every corner could be a feral ghoul, a rigged trap, or a turn that is one too many on the way to getting lost. We suppose you only need the light when it's burning low. The Y-17 trauma harness is a piece of Fallout technology that actually is rooted in a premise that seems well formulated. When Fallout New Vegas introduced the concept, it was a part of the backdrop of the Old World Blues DLC, a suit designed by the Big MT think tank that would theoretically automate bringing injured or dead soldiers back from the battlefield. A complex network of interconnected artificial muscles and fibers will take over the user of the suit if they are unable to move, and the suits could in theory transport a user back to its home base, determined as part of its initial programming. While the idea was clearly designed with the best intentions, the eventual Great War and design flaws brought instant nightmares. Major issues with the harness involved the suit being unaware of when to truly activate, as the severity of the pilot's injuries couldn't be fully determined, causing suits to activate, taking over at unreliable times, whether the wearer of the suit needed it to. When the bombs did fall, suits without a home base would go into what's called a frenzy mode, as they would begin to wander without a clear end destination. The combination of these issues was compounded when the suits could mimic combat actions, with some soldiers being unable to control the suit, watching helplessly as the trauma harness murdered indiscriminately, until even the soldiers themselves succumbed to being trapped within it. Hundreds of years later, the trauma harnesses still wander the wastes, with the skeletons of those deceased forever entombed within them. We've actually discussed Andale before on this channel, but it's worth taking a closer look at again when compared to the rest of Fallout 3. Its idyllic setting in a post-apocalyptic world is incredibly unique, given the dilapidated and ruined buildings seemingly everywhere else in the 2008 game. Andale lies east of Tenpenny Tower and south of Fort Independence, along the Capitol Wasteland's ruined highway system. The location, given the circumstances of a worldwide apocalypse, looks in fairly great condition, and many might end up there naturally through story progression, but many didn't. Its citizens represent generations of centuries-old survivors, bloodlines that actually existed when it was still called Annandale, Maryland. But that's where the story stops being positive by any stretch of the imagination. After outlasting the bombs dropping, the families who were prepped for doomsday lived off of their food stores for a time, but eventually they grew desperate and began kidnapping and harvesting unsuspecting wastelanders. By 2277, the location is an incredibly dark and creepy settlement, with a human slaughterhouse hidden amongst its citizens. And if that wasn't already bad enough, its families are only possible by generations of inbreeding and repressive social norms. Even power armor users don't like to go near there, and we recommend you take their advice of steering clear. Players are likely to stumble upon Pickman's Gallery without even realizing it, as the tall building on Boston's North End has a bright red door, and because of this is going to catch your eye. What happens next will weird out the majority of players. Entering the gallery will lead you to the quest, Pickman's Gift. Pickman is of course a prolific serial killer, one who targets raiders specifically, and creates artwork using their bodies, with some paintings even integrating the blood of his victims. We can't show you all of them here, but the gallery is a very disturbing one, and leads deep underneath the 3-story complex where former smuggling tunnels were created. The raiders have of course caught up to Pickman, and can be found throughout the home, and this is even as they gaze upon art created from their own dead members. The player can choose to aid Pickman or bring an end to everyone in the building, but regardless of the outcome, this isn't a fun location to accidentally find late at night just before you decide to want to go to bed. Within the Georgetown neighborhood of Washington, D.C., sits a relatively intact townhome that was once owned by the McClellan family. Their name still adorns the address plate on the outside of the home, but it is now only inhabited by a dormant Mr. Handy robot, who has been there since before the Great War. What remains of the McClellans is a sad story that can partially be retold through interactions with the robot, who recalls that the family had 4 members, of which were 2 parents, a child, and a newborn baby. They also had a dog named Muffy, and the Handy robot routinely took this dog on walks. Unfortunately, the McClellans have long since died, and only their skeletons remain, at least for the parents, and their young child who passed away clutching their teddy bear. Unfortunately, the infant child's remains are nowhere to be found. Muffy's corpse, however, can be found in the backyard, and Mr. Handy will still try to wake her up for a walk. But be careful. If you interrupt this conversation, he'll become instantly hostile towards you. The entire vibe of the townhome is frankly a sad and unsettling interaction that only gets worse the longer you poke around. The Museum of Witchcraft was never going to be a wholesome place, given the Salem witch trials and an already creepy exterior of the building. It wouldn't get better from there, however, as many players would soon discover. The former church-turned-museum is now almost unrecognizable on the inside, as the years have not been kind to it, and many have investigated the museum for various reasons. One reason is that many have discussed odd things happening here, and this extends to a missing group of gunners who went on an expedition there and never returned. Investigating the site leads to some bizarre set pieces, as there's various mannequins positioned across the location, and numerous dead bodies of the aforementioned gunners strewn across the museum. The ambient noise and creepiness of the old church would be bad enough, but a scripted death claw will also show up inside the building, leveling with the character. This is absolutely no longer a tourist destination. Many of us remember New Vegas for its jingle jangle, but it's truly home to one of the darkest Fallout quests. Within the Aerotech Office Park in New Vegas is a refugee camp in what was previously corporate offices in the old world. While refugee is the term given for its inhabitants, this actually stretches to citizens who couldn't afford to live in the area, or have addictions, or generally can't make it on their own. And some would even bet their life savings in New Vegas only to end up here. The New California Republic has created what they can to assist these individuals in the office park, providing shelter, basic amenities, and a general level of protection. The courier, however, will learn from Captain Parker, who runs this site, that numerous refugees have gone missing, and he enlists you to investigate the nearby Casa Madrid apartments. Upon arrival, two former salvagers named Dermot and St. James let on that they already know more than the average person might know about the missing refugees. And after a brief investigation of the apartment complex, Dermot's ledger can be uncovered, showing a considerable history of trafficking women and children to the fiends, the chem-addicted raiders of New Vegas. The quest itself can end in handing the evidence over to the NCR to deal with the problem, or you can decide to address it yourself. No matter what, however, the result is a horrifying reminder of the very real human trafficking that still plagues modern societies, let alone a fictional one. And with that, we thank you for joining us as we explored 9 times Fallout got creepy and unsettling. Did we miss any of your favorite creepy content from the Fallout series? Let us know in the comments. And for more content just like this video, check out our Fallout Stories playlist linked here, where you can find more weekly Fallout content. And until next time, pop culture nerds, keep on dissecting. This is Mark signing off.